Yeah, my experience going to Egypt the first time was not unlike some of yours. Thank you. I made the decision to go on a trip to Egypt inexplicably, and after I booked it and chose it, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I going here? But I just felt such a draw to it. And a couple of years before, I'd done a multimedia piece. It was called The Bird, the Lake, the Mummy. And I just made up a bunch of stuff for this multimedia piece, or thought that I was. Like, for instance, I set it in a place called Abydos. And then when I actually got to Egypt, I had an extremely profound, completely life-changing spiritual awakening that happened in the city of Abydos, the temple of Seti I. And, for instance, the Merkaba meditation that we're going to be doing, the vision that I was presented with was of the living sacred geometry of the flower of life. And it was only years after I went to Egypt that I went back and revisited the multimedia piece I had done a couple of years before and went, oh my God, I set this in Abydos. And I chose as the primary character's name Akhenaten. And I didn't know anything about Akhenaten. I had no idea, who he was in terms of the spiritual progression of humanity or what he represented. I was just pulling these things, sort of randomly out of the air. And yet it was only in hindsight that I could see that no, even years before going to Egypt, my higher self was aligning me to awaken and remember and return to what I had already known and had already lived many lifetimes before. So all right. First of all, this particular trip is from March 28th to April 10th. And, one of our philosophies, one of the philosophies of Spirit Quest Tours is there's nothing wrong with tourism. We love tourism. We love, hey, let's buy some t-shirts. Let's help the local economy. But we also believe very passionately in the potential of pilgrimage and conscious travel to really transform lives. And so that's our primary focus. So when we go into places, we tend to go privately. We go with a very different intention than, the tour buses that pull up. All right, you got 45 minutes. Back on the bus. So we go ceremonially. We do perform ceremonies in all of the Holy of Holies. Almost all of our visits are private, and we like to do a lot of things that are off the beaten path, that are maybe a little bit harder to get to, like Sekhmet, for instance. The Sekhmet Chapel in Karnak Temple is one of the places where we go privately, and that's a profound and really incredibly powerful energy to be in the presence of. We'll talk about that here
What's
in a bit.
amazing to travel together, if you go to Disneyland and there's all these lines and all of this rush, we avoid the Disney line rushes. We go sunrise, sunset, we go to Luxor at night, candlelit, amazing, beautiful experience. And the building walking through is larger than any roller coaster ride that I've ever been on. The experience of that and the sensations that you feel are really, really incredible. Prior to Greg being Spirit Quest Tours, he ran a very large company did a lot of the Hollywood stuff that you see. After his visit to Egypt, he left that life behind and began taking pilgrimages around to Egypt, to Bali, to other places. And of those, I've heard you say, even through the experience, when I first saw the pictures, when I first experienced this, I felt such depth, connectedness.
Absolutely. Yeah, I go to Bali a couple of times a year. Right after Egypt, I'm going to Morocco. Prior to Egypt, I'm going to Italy and Rome. These are amazing places. I love them. They each have their own transformative, quality and their own unique flavor of experience. But Egypt is not only in terms of the heritage and the culture that has flowed out of it, but in terms of the energy of the land. And when it comes to the spiritual science that is embodied in the temple structures, it is like no place on the planet. The transformative field of energy in every aspect of existence, from the physical through the metaphysical, through the spiritual, through the cosmic, it is such a nexus of transformation and quickening and enlightenment. that there's no place like it on the planet, truly. And so there, two of the really special things that we're going to be doing on this trip. When we're sailing the Nile, we're on a private luxury, what's called a dahabeah. So we're sailing, really, it's just our group. We have this entire boat to ourselves. So we have the freedom to be as batshit crazy as we want to be, right? So we do channelings, we do healings, we do whatever we want because the boat is ours. It's our floating luxury bed and breakfast. So Greg will be doing sessions, I'll be doing sessions, Sarah will be doing sessions, and we're also going to be diving very deeply into A Course in Miracles. When Sarah, when we knew, hey, we got to do this again, and it was, I went and got ahead of myself. That's okay. It's probably, a sign from the technology that it's time to move on. But Sarah, one of Sarah's insights was, hey, let's marry this with A Course in Miracles. And the instant that she said it, I knew, that is such a profound impulse that's come through, from the higher realms. And as we've been exploring it, as I was building the itinerary for the trip, as we've been doing our webinars around A Course in Miracles, I realized how perfectly these things mesh and align. And also it struck me just now that there is such an acceleration that has happened and is happening in the ancient world, and we're going to talk briefly about this, but you would go through the ancient mystery schools and you would spend decades of your life training to be a spiritual warrior, to achieve that state of powerful spiritual transcendence. Then along comes a system like, and this is one example, A Course in Miracles, where you have the same path of transformation, but now it's been compressed into, like a year. If you do the course, it's 365 days approximately. And part of that is because there's so many of us that have returned and returned and returned. So nobody's, especially if you're in this room, you're not starting from scratch. And now, the opportunity that trips like this represent is the ability to move into that energy field. And I've seen it over and over and over again, and I've experienced it in my own life. And through the work with people like Sarah and Greg, to have such an acceleration, such a transformation, and such a reawakening to the things that we've all spent lifetimes already learning. It's fascinating to me, and it's something that the world really desperately needs at this point in time.